Hi everyone, and welcome to my Parsha share. This week we're looking at Parshat Emor, Parshat Emor, and it's wonderful to be back with you. Last week, of course, I wasn't available. I was in New York visiting grandchildren, which is a wonderful moment of nachas. But this week, the nachas is coming from you, the Talmidim and Talmidos, who are listening to the share, watching the share. Once again, if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can do so by clicking on the button at the bottom of your screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you are listening to this on SoundCloud, you can actually subscribe to the SoundCloud channel as well. And you can just do that by subscribe. There's a subscribe button and you can just do it that way. In the meantime, there is a source sheet which is available as a comment on the YouTube or on the SoundCloud, which you'll be able to download. It's simply a copy of the piece of Nesivos Sholom that I'll be doing, or excerpts of the Nesivos Sholom that I'll be doing, but I've given you the whole Nesivos Sholom. You can go through it yourselves. Hopefully, once you've been through the shir and then you look at the Nesivos Sholom, everything will make perfect sense. I hope so. Can't be sure. Maybe you'll be able to make perfect sense or more sense of it yourselves, and will be able to inform me of things that I could have missed. In the meantime, we are in the middle of sefirat Emor. We're in that period of time between Pesach and Shavuot, because as you know, the second day of Pesach begins the countdown to Shavuot. And we have a count of 49. On the 50th day is Shavuot, as we all know. And it's described, how serendipitous is this? It's described in Parshat Emor, which always falls between Pesach and Shavuot. So we always have the opportunity to talk about sefirat Emor, some aspect of sefirat Emor, by looking during our going through the Parsha. We can find some piece of information which is both relevant to the Parsha and which can teach us lessons, very important lessons about our Judaism, about how our faith as Jews should be observed, but with reference to sefirat Emor, this countdown, this period of time, which is the countdown between the two korbanos, the korban that is brought, the korban Omer that's brought on Pesach, and the final one, the Shei Alechem, which is brought on Shavuos. Let's look at this is a piece of Nesivos Sholom in Parshat Emor, and let's look at it. Mamar Moron Admor Bal Beis Avram. So the one of the Slonim Rebbe's wrote a sefer, and here the Nesivos Sholom is quoting him, and he's saying as follows: Sheva shabatot temimot tihiyena. How is this period described in the Torah? This period of 7 weeks, the countdown, because as you know, 49 days, 49 divided by 7 is 7. 7 times 7 is 7 weeks. How is it described in the Torah? The way it's described is Sheva shabatot temimot tihiyena. You have to have 7 complete Shabbats. Now, it's a curious way of describing 7 weeks. What's the word that we use for the festival of Shavuos? What does Shavuos mean? Weeks. Why is it called weeks? Because at the end of 7 weeks, that's when we have the festival of Matan Torah, of commemorating the anniversary of Ma'amad Har Sinai. But how is it referred to in the Torah? Is it called Shavuos? No, it's called Sheva shabatot temimot tihiyena. You have to have 7 complete Shabbats. Says the Beis Avram, L'chol hapochos hashabatot tihiyena temimot. He says, you know what the Torah is telling you? That at the very least, during this period of time, between Pesach and Shavuos, when you're doing sefirat Emor, make sure that your Shabbos is complete. The Shabbatos should be temimot. Bit of a cryptic observation, but he's commenting on the strange language that is being used by the Torah to describe 7 weeks. It should have said Sheva Shavuos, doesn't. It says Sheva Shabbatos temimot. So he says, you know what the Torah is telling you? That the Shabbos, each Shabbos should be tomim. There should be 7 temimot, Shabbos, temimot, during this period between Pesach and Shavuos, the countdown period. V'yesh lefarish, says the Torah, the Nesivos Sholom. Mamar zeh al pi divrei haramchal. Let's look at what Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the great Kabbalist, the great ethicist, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who lived in the 18th century. Let's see what he's got to say. we can understand what it is the Beis Avram is saying if we understand or know this particular Ramchal. He says it in the Mesilas Yesharim, Perek Chavov. You can look it up there. Be'inyan madregos tahara ukedusha. And by the way, this is a theme, a running theme. If you've been listening to my shiurim over the years, you'll discover that what I'm about to say is actually a running theme throughout the Nesivos Sholom. He always makes this particular distinction. He makes it in different ways, and he applies it in different contexts and circumstances, but he makes the same point time after time. And it's based on a Ramchal in the Mesilas Yesharim who says there's two different levels. Let's talk about the two different levels. One is a level of Tahara, and one is a level of Kedusha. Now, if you weren't being particular, and I asked you, is there a difference between purity and sanctity? You'd say, not really. Purity and sanctity seem to be something or two things which are synonymous with each other. Purity is tahara. Kedusha, holiness, sanctity, is something which seems to be quite similar, if not exactly the same. So the Mesilas Yesharim, and this is what's being brought out here by the Nesivos Sholom, makes a very basic distinction between Tahara and Kedusha. Let's see what he says. The Tahara in Yona Perishus Mehora. What does it mean to be pure? It means you've separated yourself from that which is impure. You've stopped doing anything bad. So you're no longer impure. It's a state of neutral. It's a state of no longer being associated with Ra. He often, in this particular piece, he doesn't quote this pasuk, but he always quotes the pasuk, Sur Meira va'asei toiv. It's two different things. The Sur Meira is Tahira, and Asei toiv is Kedusha. Ach, bozeh adayin lo hegia lichlal Kedusha. If you're just involved in prishus me'ara, separating yourself from that which is bad, and you're tahor, you're not yet at the stage where you can call yourself Kodesh, where you can call yourself in a state of Kedusha. Kedusha hi madrega elyoina. That's the next level above. If you want to get to the next level, that's the level of Kedusha. It's an elevated level. Shena'aseh Kodesh, you become Kodesh. Kemizbeach or kehechel. For example, you have something called a Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is something which is tohor. What is it? It's an altar that you have in the Azora, in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. It's tohor, it's totally pure. There's nothing impure that's ever touched it, but it's not Kodesh. When does it become Kodesh? When you bring karbonos on it. Then it gets to that elevated level of Kedusha. Heichel, what's the Heichel? The sanctuary. A sanctuary is a building. It can be completely free of anything which is Ra. It's definitely had the Sur Meira applied to it. However, the sanctity of the Heichel only comes about as a result of the avodah that you do in the Heichel. That is a totally different level. It's an elevated level. V'hine Yemei HaSfira. Let's think about the Yemei HaSfira, the days of counting that take place between the beginning of Pesach and Shavuot. She'machona likras Kabbalat Hatorah. What are they? They are the preparation. They are the period of preparation for Kabbalat Hatorah, for receiving the Torah. Every year we receive the Torah. Like every year we reenact Yetzias Mitzrayim, and every year on Sukkot we relive the period of the wilderness in the desert when God looked after us. And in all the Jewish festivals, we have this concept of reliving that moment. So every year we go through the experience of Kabbalat Hatorah. How do we do that? We go to do that through a period of preparation called Yemei HaSefira. So there are a preparation, a hachana for Kabbalat Hatorah, miyuodim lahasik b'hem es beis hamadregos tahara kedusha. So what do we need to do during this period of preparation? On each day, we have to do two things, or at least aspire to two things. We may not be able to do both of them at the same time. But the first thing is we have to be a sur meira. We have to get away from anything bad. We have to cleanse ourselves from anything which reduces our tohor status. That's number one. Number two, we have to make ourselves Kodesh. We have to be in a state of Kedusha in order to receive the Torah. So the Hachana is divided into two. Level one is Tahira. Level 2 is Kedusha. So there is a tefillah, not everybody says it. There is a prayer that is said immediately after you count the sefirat Emor. You make the bracha, you count, you say haracham on yachzir, and then you say Rabbeinu Sholom. What did we say in the Rabbeinu Sholom? Kedei letaharenu mikliposeinu. Why did we count sefirat? In order to purify us from our klipa, that's our outer shell, umitumoiseinu, and from any impurities that may exist within us, v'chulu. And then we continue with that part of the prayer, and then we say v'aytaher. There's a comma there. You wouldn't have thought of it if you look at that particular prayer, and I'm not sure the Sidurim have this comma, but v'aytaher, and then once you are purified, the prayer says, and now I can be mekadesh myself, I can sanctify myself to the kedusha shel mala, to the elevated level of sanctity that I aspire to. And that's exactly this prayer that we say after each day of counting the sefirat. That prayer encapsulates the intent of the Yemei HaSfira, this period of hachana, of preparation for Shavuos, for the festival of Kabbalat Hatorah. And number one is tahara miklipaseinu. First thing we have to do is purify ourselves from that outer husk, that impurity which is so embedded in us, that part of us which is impure, which is tumah. That's number one. Number two is leiskadesh b'kedusha shel mala. Then once we've done that, we've got rid of the klippa, now we can be miskadesh, we can work towards being in a status of kedusha. In order to achieve a status where we can receive the Torah, it's not enough for us to purify ourselves from that which is our impurities within us. We need adregas hakadusha. We need also to be at the level of kedusha. So it's step one is to get rid of the klippos and the tumos. Step two is to do the kedusha shel mala. That's why it says, first of all, v'aytaher, and then it says v'eskadesh b'kedusha shel mala. That's what the prayer means. So he gives an explanation for this prayer, which was obviously constructed at a much earlier period. It was put together by whoever wrote it, but with a specific intent in mind. It wasn't a random string of sentences. There's actually a very deliberate intent. Number one, tahar. Number two, Kodosh. V'yesh lefarish. Now we can continue and we can explain the biyamei ha'choil shel ha'sfira ha'avoda hi letaharenu. Let's look at it from a particular perspective, the perspective of weekdays and Shabbats. So what's the avoda of the weekday during Sfira? We've got 7 weeks. Each week has 6 weekdays and 1 Shabbos. So what is the purpose of each weekday? Each day of the week, which isn't a Shabbos, during the Yemei HaSfira, during the period of counting, letaharenu miklipaseinu mitumaseinu. That's when we deal with the purification process. That's where we're meant to purify ourselves. Why? Because you're working during the week. You're involved with matters of the world, and you can do so with keeping in mind that you need to purify yourself from that which is impure. Ulam. Ikar ha'achana likras Kabbalat Hatorah. But you must remember that the main preparation that we're going to be doing in order to receive the Torah, that actually takes place on the Shabbos of the Sfira, of this period of counting. You're getting the message here, right? What does it say in the Torah? Sheva shabatos temimot tihiyena. So there's a specific focus on the Shabbos element of the Yemei HaSfira. It's not enough just to deal with the weekdays. We need to have these Shabbos, and these Shabbos are extremely important. In fact, they are essential. They are an essential component of hachana for Kabbalat Hatorah. Sheva Shabbos temimot tihiyena she'in yonam lehiskadesh b'kedusha shel mala. What are we meant to do it? That's what it says in the prayer. On those days, on the Shabbos, we've got 7 days to do it. 7 days during the 49, when we can be sanctify ourselves with the kedusha shel mala. U'kamoishe pirashnu apasuk usafartem lochem. And now he says something beautiful, absolutely beautiful. He focuses on the word lochem. It says, and you should count lochem. How do we translate the word lochem? For you. You should count lochem, but he says, no, lochem is not a random word. Lochem actually is a clue, it's a hint, it's a code word for Shabbos. Usfartem lochem. What does it mean? Usfartem miloshin sapir v'yahaloim. Do you know what the word sapir and yahaloim mean? Sapir and yahaloim actually means sapphire and diamond. But it's a Hebrew expression which means pure and clean, to cleanse completely. So it's a wonderful expression because obviously diamonds are so crystal clear, they're so dazzling in their clarity, and sapphires as well, this jewel, etc., is something which it's meant to indicate a complete cleansing. There's something elevated about the cleanliness of a diamond, of a jewel. And so it says, sefartem, what's the word sefartem? Like sapir, like sapphire. Usfartem, you should cleanse. Usfartem lochem, loher esinyone lochem. What does it mean? You should use the lochem, the Shabbos, as a moment to be sapir v'yahaloim, to cleanse yourself. Usfartem lochem, leher esinyone lochem, ha'inyonim hagashmiyim v'harishus sheyu kadoshim kekarbonos hakroivim b'mizbeach u'v'heichel. Just like you use the mizbeach and the heichel. What are they? Physical objects, material objects. You could say, you look at a mizbeach, I could build a mizbeach wherever I am. I could build a replica of the mizbeach that was in the heichel. It could even be a pure mizbeach, but it has no meaning until I bring karbonos on it in the Mokim HaMikdash. It has no meaning whatsoever. It's just a physical object, it may be pure. But usfartem lochem means that I've cleansed it for use. I'm going to use the physical objects of my life for a purpose that is going to be an elevated purpose, a purpose of Kedusha. V'zois masigim al yedei hashabosei shel hasfira. How can I do that? How can I turn my physical, my material existence into something which is elevated to the status of Kedusha? Not just pure. Oh, it's fine. By the way, I conduct myself throughout my life in the best possible way, and I make sure that I'm not contaminated by any of the things that can contaminate. That's not enough. How can I turn that non-contaminated physical material life into something which is sanctified? I have a vehicle for it. Do you know what that vehicle is? It's very simple. It's called Shabbos. Shabbos is the sapir v'yahaloim of all the things that are physical and all the things that are lochem. The ordinary day-to-day things of life suddenly become elevated through the medium of Shabbos. It's absolutely fantastic. And during the Sfira, I have this opportunity of both doing the Tahora during the days of the week, the weekdays, and then I have the Shabbos, and they can be they can offer me the ability of sanctifying my life in preparation for Kabbalat Hatorah, for receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai, which I'm going to do this year and every year. How? The Shabbos enable the now cleansed objects of my life to be sanctified, to become ready for Shabbos. Ki ha-Shabbos kodesh mamshicha kedusha al klal Yisrael. For those capable of receiving kedusha within the Jewish nation, because they've created a vessel that is pure and cleansed, then the Shabbos will deliver the Kedusha into those vessels. They're now ready. They're waiting. They're waiting to be filled with Kedusha. Shabbos is the day when the Kedusha is going to come down and going to fill those vessels which are ready to receive them. Kumama Moran HaKodesh Mikobrin. Another one of the Slonimer relatives, the Slonimer Rebbe relatives, the Kobrina, he says as follows, says the Nesivos Sholom, Kodesh hi lochem Shabbos HaMalka. It's something that we say on Shabbos, we sing it in the Zmiras, Kodesh hi lochem Shabbos HaMalka. But Shabbos afilu inyone lochem heim gam kein kodesh. Even the things that belong to you, the ordinary furniture of life, the things that you might think, well, they're not sanctified, they're not holy, they're not special, they're just ordinary things. Okay, I've made sure that they're not contaminated by anything bad, but they're not kodesh. No. Kodesh hi lochem Shabbos HaMalka. The lochem becomes kodesh because of the Shabbos, the queen that Shabbos is, infuses everything that's lochem with kedusha if it's ready to receive it. B'Shabbos afilu inyone lochem heim gam kein kodesh. They're also holy. Koloma lo rak toher elo kodesh. They're not just pure; they become sanctified. And what does it say in this week's Parsha, Parshas Emor? It says, Techila lemikra'e kodesh. They are the beginning of the Mikra'e Kodesh. Shabbos, every Shabbos, is the essence of the Mikra'e Kodesh. You couldn't have Yom Tov. You couldn't have the Chagim if you didn't have Shabbos. Shabbos is what enables us to celebrate Yom Tov. Without Shabbos, no Yom Tov is possible. That's what it says. Techila lemikra'e kodesh. Ha'aroitz eliyos nikra ledargas kodesh ha'haschala zehi raka mishabbos. The only way that you can infuse your life with kedusha, even a weekday, is because you have this engine of kedusha in your life. Do you know what that engine is called? It's called Shabbos. U'kamoshe kosev bereishis chochma. The Reishis Chochma writes as follows: Ala posuk vayivorech elekimis yom hashvi'i vayikadesh osai. God blessed the seventh day and He sanctified it. What does it mean? Shabbos kodesh hi me'ayin u'mekoir hakdusha. If you want to know what Shabbos is, it's a spring that bursts forth with kedusha. It is the source and fount of kedusha in the world. Shekol ha'roitz eliyos kadosh yamshich mimeno kedusha. Anybody who wants to be sanctified, that is what offers us the opportunity in our lives to reach a status of kedusha. V'lochein ha'hachana ha'ikris leKabbalat Hatorah. Therefore, says the Nesivos Sholom, the main vehicle of preparation, the main medium of preparation, the main source within the Yemei HaSfira of preparation for Kabbalat Hatorah, do you know what it is? Sheva shabatot temimot tihiyena. That's what the Pasuk is talking about. Of course it's talking about 7 weeks, but the clue here is that it talks about the Shabbos. The rest of the Yemei HaSfira are only the platform for the Shabbos that occur during the Yemei HaSfira, and they are the true opportunity. They give us the correct grounding for preparation in order for us to receive the Torah again as if we were at the foot of Mount Sinai. In order to achieve the tachlis, the true purpose of Am Yisrael, you need to be a mamleches kohanim, a kingdom of priests. By the way, there's a hint there. Kingdom of priests, the Goy Kodesh, and a holy nation. Why both? Why doesn't it just say, Tiyu li mamleches kohanim, or Tiyu li Goy Kodesh? What's the two things? So what is most associated with kohanim? Kohanim are the priests. We talk about the priests throughout Leviticus. By the way, that's why it's called Leviticus. In the Christian faith, they don't look at much of Leviticus because they don't. It's not relevant to their faith, even though it exists within what they call the Old Testament. For us, of course, it's Tanakh. It's the Torah. But they don't look at Leviticus. There's only 1 or 2 pieces of Leviticus that they look at. Why is it called Leviticus? Because it talks about the tribe of Levi. It's a sefer, it's a book that's mainly aimed at the Leviim and the Kohanim. What is it talking about? Talking about staying holy. Right? It happens to be that Parshas Kedoshim is talking to all of Am Yisrael. But many of the laws, but even in this week's Parsha, and in the Lusatni in Achrei Mos, which we read last week, Achrei Mos Kedoshim, it talks about the sanctity and the purity of the Kohanim. They have to be pure. So all the nation has to be somehow, has to be an echo, a reflection of what is expected of the Kohanim. They have to be pure. We all have to be pure. The Kohanim are expected to be pure in order to function as Kohanim. But God wants us all to be Mamleches Kohanim. We have to be a kingdom of priests. Okay, that's all very well. That means you're pure, but you haven't yet reached the level of Kedusha. That's why it says that he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Va'atem Tiyuli, I would like you to be, you, the nation of Israel. You must be for me, Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kodesh. You have to be a Sur Meirah group that is ultimately going to be the Goy Kodesh, Sur Meirah v'Asei Toiv. The Asei Toiv is what's going to bring you to a level of Kedusha. Ha'achona ha'ru'uya lozehi b'sheva shabatot shemekorim ayin ha'kedusha. So how can you do that? The only way you can do it is by using wisely the 7 Shabbos, the 7 shabatot that exist between the beginning of the count of sefirat and the end when we embrace Shavuos, the festival of Matan Torah, that you use each one of those Shabbos as the platform for Kedusha. You've separated yourself from everything bad. You've reached a state of Tahira, but you've not yet reached a state of Kedusha that's only going to be possible through the Shabbos. V'zehu that exactly explains, remember what we said at the beginning from the Beis Avraham. He says at the very least, make sure that you make those Shabbos, each minute and each second of those Shabbos, totally complete, totally worthwhile, used to every last second. Because it's through those Shabbos that you will reach the level of Kedusha that you need to reach in order to have achieved the status to receive the Torah. The Shabbos Shema. Remember the famous medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu and Hashem Yisbarach, the Rabbi Shalom, had this incredible discussion, and God tells him, I have this wonderful treasure in my treasury, in my secret treasure house. Do you know what it's called? It's called Shabbos. It's an exceptional treasure. That's what I have. Shabbos is a gift of Kedusha. That's what he means. Why is it considered such a beautiful, such a wonderful gift, such a treasured gift? Because it's so unique. Because it's not like any of the other things that God has. There's nothing else that God gives us that enables us to become Kodesh. Because, by the way, there's no reason why we should be Kodesh. Nothing physical can be Kodesh just in and of itself. That's the whole purpose. The whole idea of the physical world is that it's devoid of Kedusha. Kedusha is achieved, but the truth is it's not really achieved. It can only be achieved by being given by God. We can achieve a state of Kedusha because God enables us to be Kodesh even though we're physical, even though we are material. Now, what is the medium by which we can achieve that status? That's Shabbos. So that's why Shabbos is referred to by Chazal as Matana Toiva. That, do you know what he has? A great gift, because it's a gift. You don't deserve it. You can't go into a store and buy it. You'll only ever receive it because God gave it to you as a gift. Shabbos beter Matana Toiva de merumas bazel madregas hakadusha de isa. B'Mesilas Yesharim. That's what Mesilas Yesharim is talking about, the fact that Shabbos offers us the ability to achieve the status of Kedusha. That's the gift. It's not something that you can reach yourself. You can't press this button and pull that lever and achieve a status of Kedusha. That's not possible. It's only possible because you've got Shabbos, and that's a gift. You start the process. You know how you start the process? By being a Sur Meirah and by aspiring to Kedusha. Then you sit there on Shabbos and you can bask in this matana that God has given us, that He enables us to achieve the status of Kedusha. We don't necessarily deserve it. Yes, we made the effort, but we wouldn't get it by our own efforts. The only reason we get it is because it's a matana tova, it's a beautiful gift. If a person does, then makes the necessary effort in order to achieve it, the effort that God expects of us, then God will give him or her that status of Kedusha, and that status of Kedusha will be achieved on a Shabbos, not on an ordinary day of the week. That gift is received and is only possible through the Holy Shabbos. That's why it's called Shabbos Kodesh. Shabbos and Kodesh are synonymous. They are the same thing. It is a day of Kedusha. That's why it's called Shabbos Kodesh. We don't say Sunday Kodesh, Yom Rishon Kodesh. That's not. You know what Yom Rishon is? Yom Rishon is part of the countdown that we have every week. We say it every day, by the way, at the end of Davening, Hayom Yom Rishon, and it's a countdown, the first day towards Shabbos. Hayom Yom Sheni, the Shabbos Kodesh. Hayom Yom Shlishi, the Shabbos Kodesh. That's the whole purpose of the week, is to achieve the ability to reach Shabbos, so that you can have access to the Kedusha. She matana tova. Bechinas v'soifoi matana. At the very end, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a matana, a gift of Kedusha as a result of preparing yourself for it. She'im tchilasai hishtadlus. If the beginning is effort that you put into it, then soifa is matana. Shebechol yomos hashavua Yehudi amal v'yogea lahasig dargas toher. Every day of the week, through the things that you do, the ordinary things that you do, just to live, thrive, and survive, that you are aiming towards a status of toher, of purity. By the way, that's a very important status. It's not easy to achieve that. It's not easy to do the things that you do during the week. Whatever it is that you're doing, and make sure that everything you've done, whether it's eating, whether it's conducting your business, your relationships with other people, to do so in a state of tahira, to make sure that it's in a state of total purity. That's very difficult. But if you do that, that's your hishtadlus, so that when you get to Shabbos, Noisim Leiber Shabbos Matana, that person will receive, that man, that woman will receive on Shabbos the gift. Matana Tova is Dargas HaKedusha, the level of Kedusha. Ubichlal temimot tihiyena sheyu hashabbosos shekodim Kabbalat Hatorah bishleimus. What does it mean that they are shabbosos temimos? They have to be complete. Tomim means perfect, and it also means complete. And it says here, it says in the holy books, in the sources, it says on the pasuk, Mechalaleha mois yumos. Those who desecrate it will surely die. It's somebody who does chalal, some form of desecration on Shabbos. What does that mean? That's what it says in the Sefarim HaKadoshim, that someone who treats Shabbos in a chalal way, in a desecration way, is somehow ruining the whole purpose and the spirit of Shabbos. What is it talking about? The original Slonim Rebbe said as follows: Sherega echad shel Shabbos kodesh choshuv kekama v'kama sha'is b'mei achoil. You need to understand that Shabbos is an incredible day. Each and every minute, even second of Shabbos, is more valuable than hours of any other day of the week. That's why they have to be temimos, bishleimus, complete. By the way, that's why we begin Shabbos early. You know, we don't just begin Shabbos at nightfall. When does a day normally begin? At nightfall. That's not when we begin Shabbos. When do we begin it? We begin it at Shkia. Actually, we don't even begin it at Shkia, which is sunset. We begin it 18 minutes before Shkia. Why? So we should never have a Shabbos which isn't complete. We're ready in the Shabbos mode before Shabbos has begun. When do we end Shabbos? So we end Shabbos when there's 3 stars, but actually we wait a few minutes longer. Some people wait until 72 minutes after Shkia. Not just 40, 42, 45, or whatever, 60 minutes some people wait. Some people wait 72 minutes. Why? They want to make sure that they have Shabbos bishleimus, complete Shabbos. But there's another message here, and that's the message of the Sabbath Kadisha of Slonim. And that's what's quoted here in the Nesivos Sholom. Each and every minute of Shabbos is precious. And that reminds me of something I once heard from Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. It was an incredible idea. I've carried it with me all the years. He said, people originally, when he began to bring people, those who weren't so religious, into shuls and into Shabbos events, which were from, and he was obviously a Shomer Shabbos, and everything that he did was with full Shmiras Shabbos, and they would come to shul, and they would have a Friday night dinner, but they would come by car, so they were driving on Shabbos, and they would leave in a car, which obviously is against the laws of Shabbos. He said, people would say, well, what are you doing? How is it that you're allowing yourself to engage with people who are machalal Shabbos in order so that they spend a few hours of Shabbos with you? Better they should stay at home. What's the point? He says, they got it all wrong. They've got it totally wrong. Do you know why? Because every minute of Shabbos counts. And if it wouldn't be for me, they wouldn't be keeping that 2, 3, 4 hours of Shabbos that they're keeping because they're with me. In those days with no cell phones. They walk into shul, they're not being Mechal Shabbos. And they're spending the time keeping Shabbos until the moment they leave and they go back to their car. That 3-4 hour period, they're keeping Shabbos. Who said that Shabbos is a zero-sum game? That it only works if you keep the full 24 hours or 25 hours of Shabbos? Who says there's no value in keeping an hour of Shabbos or 2 hours of Shabbos or 5 hours of Shabbos? Celebrating Shabbos, having Oneg Shabbos, recognizing Shabbos. Who says that there's no value? That also seems to be an integral message here. It's not the point that is being brought out here by the Nesivos Sholom, but it's a very powerful point in and of itself. Every minute of Shabbos counts. Don't waste a minute, or don't dismiss a minute of Shabbos as not being as important as any other. And that's the point that's being implied by this posuk, sheva shabatos temimot tihiyena. They should be bishleimus. Don't treat the Shabbos just when you want to have the Shabbos. Don't have the Shabbos just in shul. Don't have the Shabbos just at the Shabbos meal, but the rest of the Shabbos is not Shabbos. Every minute of Shabbos should count as Shabbos in your eyes. That's what it means. Sheva shabatos temimot tihiyena. Dihina HaKadosh Baruch Hu baras habriya ba'ofen she'ein shleimus b'shum chelek b'briya. You know what? God created creation without there being completeness in any element of the Bria. There's nothing which is total. There's nothing which is complete. Everything lacks something. Everything is imperfect. Shekol davar ba'olam chaser shleimus. Every aspect of creation lacks something that we would consider to be, in spiritual terms, sholem. Ultimately, simply the fact that it is physical, that it's material, in and of itself means it's not sholem. But even beyond that, we know that nothing is complete. There's no such thing which is the paradigm of perfection in creation. There's always some level of atrophy or some level of something that's missing from any object or item or part of creation. And there's a reason for that. In the very essence of this world, of the physical world, lo yitochin davar mushlam. It's not possible to have something which is totally sholem, which is totally complete. Therefore, it doesn't matter how hard you try. I remember my father used to have a sign on his desk. And it said, obviously this was a desk in an office where he conducted business, but it said on it, every time I was about to make ends meet, somebody moved the ends. In other words, just when you finish the list, suddenly you're adding another 10 items to the list. Then you finish those 10 items, Baruch Hashem, I finished. No, there's still more stuff to do. I remember Shlomo Carlebach used to say, we used to shout at the concerts. They would say, sing Eso'inai, sing Mim Koimcha. He said, listen, if I sing everything today, what am I going to sing next time? I won't have anything to sing. In other words, there's no such thing as complete. There's always something left over for the next day, for the next moment to do, that there's something still left to do. There's no such thing as shleimus in this world. That, in fact, part of creation is the lack of shleimus. That's what we have to recognize. It's integral to creation. And what does that mean? It's not possible for you ever to achieve shleimus in anything that you do. However, says the Nesivos Sholom, Nosana Kodesh Baruch Hu Yisrael es HaShabbos. God gave the Jewish people Shabbos. Shehi haneshama shel klal Yisrael. It is like the spiritual soul, the neshama of klal Yisrael. By the way, you know what the word neshama means? Neshama comes from the word neshima, breath. It is the spiritual breath. It's like the oxygen of Klal Yisrael. It's the oxygen of the Jewish nation. You can't survive without oxygen, but it's more than that. It's the neshama shel Klal Yisrael, the nishmas kol haTorah shebekoicha yochel Yehudi lakia l'shleimus. The entire Torah, through Shabbos, gives us the ability to reach whatever shleimus means in the physical world. We have a window into shleimus. We need to look through that window. In fact, we need to walk through that window, walk through that door, that portal into shleimus. Shabbos offers us that opportunity. So how can I get to that shleimus? I want it. I want to be in that shleimus situation. How can I do it? I keep Shabbos. I went to shul last Shabbos. I said all the Shabbos tefillos. I didn't say the weekday tefillos. I made Kiddush. I had Lechem Mishnah. I wore my Shabbos suit. Is that enough? Did I get to the Tachlis HaShleimus yet? No. That's not enough. Do you know how you can reach the Tachlis HaShleimus? By treating Shabbos as Sholem. By having the whole of Shabbos. Sheva, shabatot, temimot, tihiyena. That's what the Torah is teaching us. Do you want to reach that status of Shleimus, of Kedusha? Yes, you've got Shabbos. It's your doorway. But the only way the doorway works is if you open the door completely. How do you open the door completely? By keeping Shabbos b'shleimus, by making sure that those Shabbosos are temimot. V'zehu oimrei sheva Shabbosos temimot tiyena. That's what the pasuk means when it says that you must have sheva Shabbosos temimot sheshabbosos elu. These 7 Shabboses that we have between the beginning of Pesach and Shavuot, shekoidem Kabbalat Hatorah, they come before we reach Matan Torah, Shavuos, which celebrates and commemorates Kabbalat Hatorah, receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai. You temimos leloi chalal bahem. No aspect of it should be desecrated. No moment. There shouldn't be any what we call in Hebrew hesach hadas. Any moment when you're distracted from the purpose of the day, which is Shabbos, which is Kedusha, which is an aspiration to be a better person, which is an aspiration to be at the next level, that level which is the matana tova that God gives us through the medium of Shabbos. And that is what is going to enable every Jew to reach the full breadth and depth of Kabbalat Hatorah on Shavuos. HaShabbosos shekoidem Kabbalat Hatorah heim ikar ha'hachana leKabbalat Hatorah. And that is why the Shabbos that fall between the beginning of Pesach and Shavuos, they are the absolute headquarters when it comes to preparing ourselves for Kabbalat Hatorah on Shavuos. And this is another one of the great Slonimer rabbinic dynasty from Lechovitz. He says, Divach v'divach. The week is like the week. Chod Shabbos. Because a weekday doesn't matter what you do, and you can try your best, and you daven, and you're eating kosher, of course, and you're putting on your talis and your tefillin, or you're making sure that if you're making challah, that you did hafrashas challah, and all the things that one does during the week, all the mitzvahs that we keep, the mitzvahs, the masim tovim, we gave tzedakah, all the things that we do. But divach is divach, he says. It's just the weekday. It's not enough. It may be good enough for Tahira, but where's the Kedusha? Chod Shabbos, Baruch Hashem, he said. We have Shabbos. We have this powerful day of Shabbos where we can reach the next level, the level of Kedusha. In the Shabbos, in Maseches Shabbos, that Peivav Amud Beis, it says as follows: Udekula Alma b'Shabbos nitna Torah liYisrael. Everybody agrees. What day did the Jewish nation receive the Torah? It was Shabbos. That's when they received it. Because we know that the actual day of Kabbalat Hatorah, it doesn't fall on that day every year, but we know that actually when it happened, the day that the Jewish people received the Torah was Shabbos. Everybody agrees. There's a difference. Some people think it was one date, some people think it was another date. But everybody agrees it was definitely on Shabbos. That's because it wouldn't be possible to receive the Torah on any other day, because that's the day when there's this element of completeness, of being complete. Shleimus and Torah is identical with that. Shabbos and Torah are identical with each other in that idea of completeness, of Shleimus. And that's what it says in Tehillim. Perek Yud Tes, Toras Hashem Tamima. The Torah of Hashem is Tomim, is complete. How can we receive the Torah? It's the only way that we could ever receive a Torah, and we could understand Torah, and we can achieve the Kedusha of Torah. Not the knowledge, not the intellectual information, not the breadth of information, that there is in Torah. There's so much there. We're not talking about that. How do you achieve the spiritual essence of Torah in your life? Only because we have Shabbos. Torah Hashem temimot, sheva shabatos temimot tiyena. It's two words, identical words, used in two different contexts. One in the context of Torah, one in the context of Shabbos, and that's how we know that the Torah was received on Shabbos. Torah hi bechinas neshama. We know that the Torah is the neshama of the Jewish nation. The Shabbos hi bechinas neshama, and so too Shabbos is the soul of the Jewish nation. Al kain yesh behem dagas temimos. That's why they both have this word temimos, in connection with them. Shleimus. V'lochein. Hashabatos heima ikar hachon laKabbalat Hatorah. That's why. Make sure. I know that it's not yet Shabbos. I don't know when you'll be watching this. Today is Wednesday, but you could be watching this on Thursday or Friday. But make sure that the Shabbos, this week, this Shabbos, and the Shabbos that we still have left between now and Shavuos, that we're going to make sure that they're temimos, that they're b'shleimus, that we are working towards the shleimus of Torah, of Kabbalat Hatorah, through the Shabbos, the gift of Shabbos that was given to us. And Marumas Kain, Behemshech HaPosuk, and this is also hinted at at the end of the Posuk, where it continues, Sheva shabatos temimot tiyena, v'kraftem mincha chadasha l'Hashem. What does it say at the end of the Pasuk? You will bring a mincha chadasha l'Hashem, a new mincha to Hashem, a new offering, a new korban mincha, meal offering to God, which is talking about the Shtei Alechem. Mincha chadasha hi haTorah. It's going to be a mincha chadasha, a new mincha, a new level. Why? Hi haTorah kadosha hadagasha shleimus. What is the mincha chadasha? The mincha chadasha, which is achieved through sheva shabatos temimos, is the Torah which is complete. And that is something which is chodash, which is new, which is renewing. That is possible only through the Shabbos that occur between Pesach and Shavuot, during which we have the Yemei HaSefira. Mincha chadasha hi haTorah hakadosha hadarga shel shleimus. V'asheva shabatos temimos mevios Yehudi lekrafte mincha chadasha l'Hashem. It is through the 7 complete Shabbos that we observe between Pesach, the first day that we count, which is the second day of Pesach, first day that we count the Sefira. And we don't know when those Shabbos will fall. We just know that if there's 7 weeks, there's definitely 7 Shabbos. But by keeping them, by observing them, by using them as the vehicle, as the route to Kabbalat Hatorah, we can make sure that we can receive the Torah as a mincha chadasha through this matana tova likrafte mincha chadasha l'Hashem letachlis hashleimus, to the absolute essence of completeness, which can only be achieved through Torah, and which only can be achieved via the medium of Shabbos. We'll leave it here for today. Thank you.